I woke up at 3 in the morning because the house felt wrong. Not noisy, not cold, just wrong in a way you cannot explain with logic. After 40 years in the same farmhouse, you learn the language of silence. That night, it was whispering that something was about to break. My name is Rosalind Mercer. I am 64 years old. I have lived in this house longer than I lived anywhere else in my life. It was built by my late husband, Philip Mercer, and his father before him. Every floorboard has a memory. Every window has watched my children grow. I slipped out of bed to get a glass of water. My throat was dry. The clock on my dresser glowed 3:02. As I stepped into the hallway, I noticed a pale blue light leaking from under my daughter Lauren's bedroom door. Lauren had been staying with me since her divorce. 3 weeks of long phone calls and closed doors. She said she was tired. She said she was healing. But that light at 3 in the morning told me something else. I stood there in my nightgown, listening. No music, no typing, just silence and that glow. I knocked softly. "Lauren, are you awake?" No answer. I turned the handle and pushed the door open. Lauren was asleep at her desk. Her head rested on her arms. Her glasses were crooked. Her phone lay beside her hand, still lit. I walked closer to wake her gently. That is when I saw the screen. A message thread was open. At the top it said, "Mark, her ex-husband." My heart slowed when I read the last message. "Did you move the deed yet?" Lauren had replied. "Tomorrow?" She will never know. Another message followed. "You are sure she has not found it?" Lauren wrote back. "Mom does not even know what she is looking for. It has been hidden for 30 years. My knees went weak. Then the last line. "The property and everything else. Once it transfers, we split it 60-40, like we agreed." In that moment, I understood something terrible. My own daughter was planning to steal from me. And she thought I was too old to notice. I closed Lauren's door without making a sound and stood alone in the dark hallway. My heart was pounding so loudly, I was afraid it might wake her. For a long moment, I could not move. I was not just shocked. I was grieving. The daughter I believed I had raised did not exist anymore. I went back to my room and sat on the edge of the bed. My hands were shaking. I kept seeing those words on her phone over and over again. She will never know. That sentence hurt more than the betrayal itself. It meant they saw me as invisible, as someone easy to deceive. For most of my life, I had been the steady one, the woman who made breakfast every morning, the one who kept birthdays, school forms, and family memories in neat little boxes. I had spent decades putting everyone else first. When Philip died 8 years ago, I held this family together with nothing but patience and faith. Lauren and Daniel had always told me they were proud of me. They said I was strong. They said I was the reason our home never fell apart. I believed them. I trusted them because mothers are built to trust their children. I thought my family was simple. A widow and her 2 grown kids doing their best to survive loss. I thought the long phone calls Lauren made at night were just her sorting through pain from her divorce. I thought Daniel's quiet behavior was stress from work. I never imagined my own children were meeting in secret to divide my life like a set of numbers on a spreadsheet. That is the hardest truth. Betrayal from a stranger hurts. Betrayal from your children changes the way you see everything. And I was only just beginning to understand how deep this went. By the time morning came, I had not slept at all. The sky outside my window slowly turned gray, while my thoughts ran in circles. Hidden for 30 years. That was what Lauren had written. Something from 3 decades ago was now being used against me. I knew it had to be connected to Philip. After Lauren left the house that morning, I went straight to his old study. I had kept that room the same since the day he died. His desk, his shelves, his papers. It felt like stepping into a memory that never changed. I started looking through his drawers. At first, I found nothing unusual. Old bills, insurance forms, farm records. Everything looked clean and proper. But something inside me kept pushing. Philip had always been careful. Too careful. I began checking the bookshelves. One of them did not sit right against the wall. When I touched it, it shifted. That was when I saw a narrow space behind it. My heart started to race. I pulled the shelf forward and found a small, hidden door built into the wall. I had dusted that shelf for years without knowing what it was hiding. Inside was a metal box. I carried it to the desk and opened it. The first paper I saw was a birth certificate. The name on it was Claire Dawson. The father listed was Philip Mercer, my husband. I had to sit down. There was also a deed to a beach house in South Carolina, another to a small property in Florida, letters written in careful handwriting, a woman named Rebecca Dawson begging Philip to be part of their daughter life. He had another child, not a rumor, not a mistake, a whole person with a name and a past. Every letter told the same story. Philip sent money. He made promises. He stayed away. The final letter was dated just days before his death. In it, he wrote that he was sorry, that he wished he had been brave enough to tell me the truth. 30 years of secrets were sitting in that box, and now my children were trying to claim them. I took pictures of every document and put the box back where I found it. I pushed the shelf into place and stood there in silence. Philip had not just lied to me. He had built another life while I was raising his children and believing in him. And Lauren knew all of it. I did not confront Lauren when she came home that afternoon. I watched her instead. The way she avoided my eyes, the way she stayed close to her phone. Every small movement felt different now that I knew the truth. Later that evening, Daniel arrived for dinner. My son rarely visited without notice. Seeing him walk into the house at that moment felt planned. They spoke in low voices in the living room while I cooked. I could hear their words through the walls, not clearly enough to catch every sentence, but enough to hear the urgency. When we sat at the table, Lauren smiled like nothing was wrong. She passed me the potatoes. Daniel asked about my day. It was a perfect performance. After dinner, Lauren said they needed to talk to me. She placed a folder in front of me. Daniel explained that it was a trust document. He said it would protect me, that it would make things easier if anything ever happened to me. He said they only wanted to help manage my property. What they did not say was that once I signed it, I would no longer control anything. Lauren added that with legal issues coming up, it was important to move quickly. She said there was a woman making claims against Philip Estate, a woman who did not belong to our family. They meant Claire. They wanted me to hand over my house and land while they fought over Philip's hidden fortune. What shocked me most was how calm they were. They talked about my life the way people talk about selling a car. No emotion, just numbers and timing. In their minds, I was already gone. I told them I needed time to think. Lauren did not like that. I could see it in her face. The mask slipped for just a second. That was when I realized something even more frightening. They were not asking me. They were waiting for me to get out of the way. And if I did not move fast enough, they were ready to push. The next morning, Lauren became unusually attentive. She brought me coffee in bed. She asked how I slept. Her voice was soft, but her eyes kept searching my face. Daniel arrived with a man I had never seen before. He wore a clean jacket and carried a leather folder. Lauren introduced him as Dr. Sawyer. She said he was there to do a simple wellness check. Nothing official, just a friendly visit. Dr. Sawyer asked me what year it was. He asked who the president was. He asked me to count backward from 100. I answered every question without trouble. Lauren stood behind him, nodding slowly as if she was seeing something he could not. Then she said, I had been forgetting things. She said I left the stove on. She said I asked the same questions again and again. None of it was true. Daniel told the doctor that I had become confused lately, that I sometimes forgot where I was, that I had mood swings. They were building a story. When Dr. Sawyer left, Lauren asked for my phone. She said she wanted to download a safety app. Daniel took my car keys so I would not drive while feeling tired. By the afternoon, my world had shrunk to one room. I tried to call someone and realized I could not. I tried to leave and found the door locked. Lauren told me it was for my own good. That was the moment I understood. They were not waiting for me to fail. They were creating the failure themselves. That night, I did not sleep. I lay in my bed staring at the ceiling while footsteps moved quietly in the hallway outside my door. Someone was always there, watching, waiting. I knew if I stayed one more day I would lose everything, not just my house, not just my money, my voice, my freedom. So I made a choice. Near midnight, I opened my bedroom window. The air was cold. The garden below was dark. Philip had built a wooden trellis under that window years ago for climbing roses. I had never been more grateful for it. I tied my robe around my waist and stepped onto the sill. Every muscle in my body shook. I was not young. I was not fearless. But I was desperate. I climbed down slowly, gripping the wood until my hands burned. When I reached the bottom, I dropped the last few feet and landed hard. Pain shot through my leg, but I kept moving. I ran across the yard to the barn. The old farm truck was still there. The keys hung where they always had. I started the engine and drove into the dark. As I reached the road, I saw lights turn on behind me. Shadows moved in the windows. They had noticed, but it was too late. I did not know where I was going. I only knew I was not going back. I drove until my hands stopped shaking. I pulled into a small motel on the edge of town and paid in cash. The room smelled like old carpet and soap, but it was quiet. For the first time in days, I felt alone in a good way. The next morning, I used the motel phone to call a number I had memorized from Philip hidden papers. It belonged to Claire Dawson. She answered with caution in her voice. When I told her who I was, she went silent. We met at a coffee shop an hour later. She looked nothing like Lauren. Her eyes were kind but tired. Claire told me everything. Philip had promised her properties. He had planned a future for her, but Lauren and Daniel had contacted her after his death with a different idea. They wanted to take everything. They offered her a deal. Help them remove me, and they would give her half of Philip's secret wealth. Claire said no. She said she would not destroy another woman just to get what she was owed. That was when I realized the truth. The woman I had been warned about was not my enemy. My children were. 2 days later, we stood inside a small county courtroom that felt far too quiet for the storm it was about to hold. I sat beside Claire and her attorney, Helen Wright. My brother, Richard Hale, sat behind me. He had been a judge for most of his life, and he knew exactly what this case meant. Lauren and Daniel entered together. They did not look at me. Their lawyer spoke first. She said I was confused, that I had disappeared, that I was not mentally fit to manage my own affairs. Then Helen stood up. She laid out everything: the hidden properties, the secret child, the trust documents, the doctor who had been sent to my house without consent, the locked doors, the missing phone. I took the stand and told the judge what it felt like to be erased by your own children. Lauren stared at the floor. Daniel clenched his jaw. Then Claire testified. She described the offer they made her, the money, the plan, the way they spoke about me as if I was already gone. My brother spoke next. He explained how the trust had been written to give them full control while leaving me powerless. Finally, a real doctor testified that I was mentally sound and capable of making my own decisions. The judge listened to every word. When she spoke, her voice was firm. She said this was a clear case of financial abuse. She said the trust was invalid. She said Lauren and Daniel had violated the law and their duty as children. They were ordered to stay away from me. The courtroom went silent. I did not feel victory. I felt free. The truth changed everything. Within weeks, the deals Lauren and Daniel had been making began to fall apart. Mark turned on Lauren when he realized there was nothing left to take. He filed for divorce and released their messages to protect himself. Daniel lost his position at work when his involvement in the scheme became public through court records. Banks do not trust men who try to steal from their own mother. They blamed each other. They blamed Claire. They even blamed me. But none of it mattered anymore. The trust was gone. The property was mine again. The secret accounts Philip had hidden were recovered through the court. The lies were no longer useful to anyone. Lauren sent letters begging for forgiveness. Daniel sent messages saying he had been misunderstood. I did not reply. Some bridges do not need to be burned. They simply need to be left behind. I sold the old farmhouse 3 months later. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to. Every room carried echoes of who I used to be. A woman who believed love meant silence. With the money from 2 of Philip's hidden properties, I paid off every debt. For the first time in decades, no one owned a piece of my future. I bought a smaller place near a quiet river. It had wide windows and a porch that faced the sunrise. It felt like a place meant for beginnings, not endings. Claire visited often. We drank coffee and talked about the past without letting it poison the present. She was not a reminder of betrayal anymore. She was proof that truth had a way of finding light. I learned how to enjoy simple things again. Walking without fear. Sleeping without listening for footsteps. Making plans without asking permission. At 64, I was not starting over. I was finally starting free. People think revenge has to be loud, that it has to be cruel, that it has to look like destruction. Mine did not. Mine looked like walking away with my life still intact. Philip lies no longer controlled me. Lauren and Daniel no longer had power over my future. I had lost a husband. I had lost the children I thought I had. But I had gained something far more valuable, myself. If someone close to you ever makes you feel small, if they try to convince you that you are confused or weak, pay attention. That is not love. That is control. It is never too late to take your life back. Not at 30, not at 64, not ever. Thank you for listening to my story. If it spoke to you, please like this video. Share it with someone who might need to hear it. And tell me in the comments where you are watching from. Your voice matters.